Hello and welcome to the first ever Skywire podcast. I'm joined today by Felix, who's our strategy director, and Gareth, who's head of SEO here at Skywire. I'm the strategy and growth partner, Simon, and today we're going to be talking about SEO for LLMs and what's been happening in the world of LLMs and how they're going to be developing over the next couple of years. Felix, would you like to introduce yourself to start with?
Thank you very much, Simon. I'm Felix Truckle, Strategy Director here at Skywire. I've been working across a plethora of digital marketing projects and brands over the last several years. And obviously, one of the big impacts coming in the last year has been the arrival of LLMs for organic search. So a big part of my day today at the moment.
And Gareth?
Hi, I'm Gareth Bushell. I'm the head of SEO. I've been working in SEO and search for 18 years, and I am also seeing the biggest change of user behavior in the last decade. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this on this podcast.
So we decided to start a podcast because we were sort of seeing lots of interesting areas and we've got great expertise within the agency. And we wanted to bring that to the wider audience and see if we can add some extra value to our clients and other people might be watching. But this first podcast, we're talking about SEO and how it's been affected by LLMs and how LLMs have been affected by SEO. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this topic. It's probably the hottest conversation that any clients are talking to us about at the moment, both from the natural side and how to get featured more heavily in LLMs, such as ChatGPT and Gemini, but also from what's going to happen with paid ads. Is it going to be the new Google going forward? Is it going to be the opportunity that we all hope it will be? But I think if we sort of start with the natural side of it, and Gareth, I'm going to throw this one to you. It's like, how have you seen this develop over the last kind of couple of years? And what are the sort of like biggest trends that you're sort of seeing at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that what clients are asking me and what I'm saying to clients at the moment is really the distinction between the LLMs and how search engines work, because LLMs, they're not retrieval systems. So search engines, Google itself indexes everything it can online, holds it in the library and applies this algorithm that we hear about to ascertain what the content's about. Whereas LLMs, they work in a totally different way. They monitor and learn pattern recognition. So they're digesting and understanding a body of work, which is very, very different. So that's the core thing I'm trying to explain to clients and try to differentiate the two. Because the way a lot of people use LLMs is for generative content. So they're doing things that search engine can't do. So it's more based around the differentiation between the two.
No, that makes sense. And so, Felix, obviously, you sort of speak to our clients sort of every single day. You very much lead on it from a strategic point of view. How have you seen sort of like the conversation about LLMs appear over the last kind of 6 months to a year, and also the interest in it and what way you think it's kind of going as well, and the opportunity there on your side?
No, I think it's the questions that we get from clients that we're changing quite dramatically. I think over the last few years, we've pivoted from sort of how am I ranking? Where are my rankings doing from an organic SEO perspective to actually, am I being included in the answers on LLM search prompts? So actually finding out if the content you're putting out there is useful to LLMs. And to kind of further Gareth's point, obviously, the way LLMs read content, it needs to be presented in a nice, clean manner that it can then regurgitate useful answers back to the client. So a lot of our work has pivoted from just sort of optimizing pages to make sure that the keywords are ranking as highly as possible to actually making sure that we're providing useful information for potential customers or users for clients. So there's been a shift in what actually our clients typically are looking for at the moment. We're obviously seeing a bit of a change as well in terms of organic traffic to site, because we all know that we are using AI and LLMs to do those first touch discovery searches as well now. So previously, in years gone past, Google was first port of call for most of your questions and queries. But now people are taking that sort of offline on LLMs to do that initial discovery phase and then coming back far more educated. So we're finding that pattern of search behavior is changing for users. It's not that Google doesn't have a role to play in the search funnel. It's always going to be there to mop up that final result. But actually, users are entering the funnel potentially with more information and different levels of intent now. So I think we've got to adapt to changing customer needs, but also what people are actually searching for online as well. It seems to be changing all the time at the moment.
Mm. And I know somebody I've referred to it to me recently as the zero-click revolution, as in you're going to get a lot less clicks from your natural search, but the people that do come through are going to be a lot more educated and probably convert a lot quicker. But that's an interesting sort of journey to go on with, especially if, like, as a client, you've got a board or you've got people above you and they're going, why is our traffic going down from natural search? And to tell that kind of story. So it's a bit of an education piece there as well.
And I think internal KPIs are shifting. I think there was an initial panic originally from clients that they are seeing a drop in web traffic. But the quality of user that's arriving tends to be much higher and actually much more beneficial for that conversion route. So you're tending to see higher engagement levels online, quicker routes to conversion, and better conversion rates at the end of the day. So losing a little of that lesser quality traffic, but making sure that those who are arriving are actually following through and purchasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gareth, sort of, obviously we're sort of seeing the sort of change to that as well. And, you've been running SEO, as you sort of say, for 18 years for many different clients over that kind of time. And you had kind of quite a structure, and it was all about Google because that was, 90% of the traffic that you were driving there as well. How have you seen, how have you had to kind of alter strategies and plans for clients to make sure that they feature on LLMs more prominently? And it's a two-part question. And also, how is the work that you've done on websites already for SEO, does that have a big impact on how they featured on LLMs? And thirdly, there's a big question, what's the difference between the different LLMs? Do you have to optimize in different ways for different LLMs, or how does that work?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I mean, essentially, all of the data, as Felix said, that we used to have time on site, organic click-through rates from queries, they're normally questions, the AI overviews in Google. All of that traffic is now turned into a clickless search. So 12 months ago, I think it was 50 to 60%. And now I struggle to find any question in Google that I ask that doesn't have an AI overview. So if you were searching for a big brand and you wanted to know their returns policy, that would be brand.com/return. All of that data of that user is now gone because they're not clicking on the site. So the clickless SERP is causing a pivot in the way that we do things like keyword research and the biggest thing I'm doing for clients is connecting the dots. So while we always monitor rankings and we can see retrospective data through Google Search Console, aspirational keywords, tracking with things like Advanced Web Ranking or SEMrush or the Caffeon products out there, what we now need to see is how are people acting on the LLMs to find out the data and what are they searching, the questions, the queries, and what prompts. The queries and the prompts that people use in LLMs, they create something called a fan-out query. So if someone asks a long prompt about, I want to buy a certain type of tent because I'm camping in a certain type of area or a certain country at this time of year, the LLMs don't know the answer. I mean, they don't know anything. They just follow the patterns of behavior, break that down into a fan-out query, which is sometimes half a dozen or more keywords, and they do something called web grounding, which is going out and finding the answers in Google and Bing, just like a user would. So ChatGPT, for example, has been learning for 3 years, and it's got an encyclopedic knowledge, which isn't that useful for many people because we don't need to know the circumference of the earth. For our clients, the distance between Dublin and London, that's fixed things. But for new queries about trends in 2026 or trends based around products and services, you need to rank in search engines such as Google and Bing. Otherwise, you won't be found by the LLMs. So feeding into the SERP, clickless or otherwise, is fundamental for showing in the large language models because they need to find the information that's being asked of them. And they're not retrieval systems. They just look at patterns of behavior, prompts, and then they can find the information and then they'll present it. And we're not even getting the traffic. The LLMs are made to keep people on platform. So there are we do get some traffic from ChatGPT, but on some of the bigger clients, they get hundreds of thousands of searches every month. You're talking 0.5%, not even 1%. So that is, we need to see what the experience is on the LLMs, how we can feed them, and then obviously product pages need to be interpreted in the right way because LLMs need to break down the clarity of what everything's about. So that can be found. When it comes to the differences between, I use all of them. every day, right? I use Grok even. I'm not going to pay for it. I use the free version. I don't think Elon Musk needs the money, but I use Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, and obviously ChatGPT. And the nuances, I think a lot of it is based around volume of content, as in a 5-word prompt in ChatGPT the output can be many, many paragraphs. And the nuances between how they're used. So Grok is used to interpret questions, queries, and images on X, formerly Twitter, for example. Whereas ChatGPT is a lot more, and Claude, I find people are using for more generative purposes. But essentially, they are yet to take an index of the web. So they always use this web grounding. So from that side, the actual retrieval side, where they can find things, they all work in a very similar way.
I think that's really interesting. And, and sort of you were talking there a lot about how, the information has to be very succinct and you've got to go into the detail because people are getting into the nitty gritty of like information. I guess my question is, also we work with a lot of luxury brands and where does brand fit into this? It's like that kind of storytelling. And yes, you can have all the pillars about the quality of products, how they're made, all of those kind of key elements, which I think, the LLMs are pulling in, and it's very important to build there as well. But do you think there's a place for actually the brand, that halo effect, to tell that kind of story? And does that get pulled in at all? Or is it slightly missed out because it is so regimental and so kind of structured?
Just on that, I think brands typically are going to benefit from that brand halo effect. AI seems to be favoring sources that it already trusts. So which often means brands that have got good weighting within the space. So we're looking at mentions, citations, reputation. I think AI is taking all of that into effect when it makes its decisions on recommendations. So, SEO and LLMs, it's almost starting to look a little bit more like digital PR as we're moving on. So I think those big brands already have a lot of weight in the industry. And I think it's going to be a bit of a uphill schlep for some of the newer emerging brands to really get that authority and credibility across when they're up against some big players in the space already. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over time. You've got very small startup brands who are up against some big behemoths who have citations from across the web. And it's going to take a lot of sort of work to wheedle your way into that, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah. When people are researching brands as well, the citations are nearly always from the brand itself, but there's multiple citations in whatever search box you're looking at in the LLMs and what it's pulling out. So if it was a service-based client, Trustpilot reviews, obviously. If it was a heritage brand, the Wikipedia page, where it was mentioned in the suitable space, be it Tatler or Vogue or wherever it would be. So they all are being cited. And with the software I'm using, you can break down whether it's owned, the brand name is owned, so it comes from your website. Obviously, you got control over that content. You're going to be the aggregator. You can tell your own story. But users really, certainly for new brands, they want to know, because they want to know what the brand says about themselves, but what are other people saying about it? And that's something that really the interest in the brand, when it comes to, as Felix was saying, traditional PR, we need to make sure the owned side from the website, but the earned side is showing in citations. So monitoring the content that's being written about the brand itself is a big part of it. Because if you look at AI overview, not for bigger brands, but for simpler questions, Reddit seems to be winning with being the aggregator of the content. Wikipedia, which is fairly old-fashioned, I would say, but that's a big one in ChatGPT. So you need to know where you appear and what's being said and where you can control the narrative. Because on your own site you can, but what are other people saying? And again, with the software I'm using, you can get sentiment. So where people are saying good things, bad things, what's coming back and where's it coming from? So that is an extra layer. So it's almost like reputation management, where you have your brand ranking in Google, your 5 site links before based around your terms and conditions, your Instagram page, your other socials. So when someone searches for you, you own that space. But that's going across multi-platform now.
Yeah. And I also think that maybe there is then the opportunity for new brands, because obviously they are, if people are searching for luxury handbag with sustainability qualities, made in Italy, with this leather, with those elements as well. If you can build that narrative around your brand, both on your own channels, but then also push those stories out there, make sure you're featured in the right place, the elements pick it up, you could start being featured within this to be recommended. So there's an actual real opportunity there to kind of be found by more people, rather than Italian leather handbag. You're probably never going to be found on Google. Let's be honest about it.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I took part in a study by Brandon Fishkin, who is well known in the SEO community. No longer in the SEO community. He runs a company called Spark Toro, and they essentially had 600 SEOs, 600 senior SEOs, and they would share a list of prompts, and they would do an input-output document, and then they ran the data. And once they assessed the data, 1 in 1,000 prompts returned the same output from the LLMs. So that's based on so many data points, and none of it was done in a paid environment. It was all done in the free AI overview. So I think when we're talking about dealing with established or emerging brands, that's something that affects everybody. So we have to make our peace with that. But if you've got an emerging brand and they want to find their niche, like we were saying, luxury leather handbags being an incredibly crowded space with, heritage brands. When we're looking at the niche, we can actually see what how the prompts are directing the output, and find out how they're asking the questions. So we can actually look at the messaging and the site's niche within, say, the fashion industry, and say, this is how you're being perceived, and this is what people are asking about you already, which can shape future marketing. Because if you want to run a search campaign on Google for a very broad keyword, the conversions are going to be very low. But you can actually harvest that data from the input and the output. So that's something that is a real opportunity that new brands should be looking at, because this all needs to be tracked. And from the paid side as well, 55% is ad spend. And within that, 75% is search. So the other 25% would be YouTube display and the other PMAX options. But search is not going anywhere in Google. I think population maybe is getting bigger, and I definitely think people are spending more time online. So while ChatGPT's engagement's going up, so is Google's. So we can cross-pollinate between the different platforms, I think.
Just on that topic, then, obviously with Google Ads sort of growing in prevalence and spend, do you think that the potential arrival of LLM advertising could potentially be something that maybe starts to eat away at that revenue? Because obviously brands have certain amounts of budget they can spend, especially for paid media. If they start to pivot away and start putting 10, 20% of their budget towards LLMs and advertising there, I'm wondering whether that could be the thing that starts to eat away at sort of Google's top line. Obviously, they are still always going to be one of the biggest players in the market. And with Gemini, I'm sure we'll see ads on there as well at some point. But I'm just going to be interested to see, especially with ChatGPT introducing ads, what the sort of effect would be there as well.
Yeah, I mean, they tried it, I think, in the US. I'm yet to see it here in the UK. And I think the biggest problem was the data. The interface, it's based on impressions, not clicks. It's based on limited data. So the obviously, you look in Google Search Console, it's fairly limited because it's all organic and issues of cookie consent. But when you go into a paid platform, you have got location, that you've got, obviously your cost per click, you've got your click-through rates, the amount of impressions, breaking it down by hour. That doesn't appear to be, from the reports I've seen online, doesn't appear to be the case with the advertising in the US, which was trialed and then stopped, I believe. So I think the challenge is, where are they going to find the value if someone's writing a 13, 15, 20 word prompt? They're looking for information. And then the current trend appears to be they go to Google, find what product they need, and they could be search for product, collection, or brand, and then they're in your ecosystem, right? You can sign up for your newsletter, they're on the site. We can then get the data on the client, we can follow up the email marketing and so on and so forth. Like, if the LLMs are made to keep you on site as they currently are, is the user behavior going to change to click off? And I think that's the challenge they've got. And I think the other challenge is, and this is a big, I'm not qualified on the financial side, but looking at the Financial Times and where the ChatGPT are, they need a revenue stream, essentially, because there's the paid for version, but the cost of the company, they're going to need to roll out something. So hopefully they'll have a ChatGPT, like a search console within that. So you can see both sides, the organic and the organic and the paid. And I think that's how they win. Because Google's always gone by user experience, which is why their algorithm is so good. Slightly moving into different ground now with the sponsored results being so embedded in the organic. It's quite difficult to differentiate them. Obviously, you go to a smaller screen size on a mobile, it gets more difficult again. But the user experience has always been very good. You rarely get a result that's not on topic. So I think that's the challenge that they face. I think they'll crack it because I think they have to. I think that's the main thing. I think they really need to start to roll out ads or the bigger paid side of things.
Yeah, I think it has been very interesting because obviously ChatGPT has basically rolled back on their checkout within ChatGPT. They launched it, nobody really took it up, and they've rolled it back pretty rapidly. And in my head as sort of a user, it's very logical because it's like, oh, I might discover a product in here. But then I really want to see the brand. I want to see the story. I want to understand who they are, where it's come from. Does this product really exist? And that's the confidence you kind of get from some websites as well, from there as well. I do also have a feeling that the paid ads on GPTs, on LLMs, are going to roll out pretty quickly, and they are going to become just standard as they did on Google. I think everybody, again, when they first came onto Google, everyone was like, well, we don't want that. We want it to be natural. We don't want people to be able to pay to be at the top. But I think what happened quite quickly was that people realized that's only us, people watching this podcast, us that talk about ads all day, really understood that there was paid ads on there. I think most users will just go on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude and just type in what they're looking for and then just see what the results come up. And if it's relevant, it's interesting, and it's good to them, they will click on it and they will go down that relevance of search term. And I think that's going to happen on LLMs. I could be wrong, but I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think with the LLMs, they're less visual. I mean, when you've got a SERP, you've got blended SERP, you're looking for a product. Obviously, you've got the shopping, you've got the product ads. If you're looking for information, you've got your different sections. You can navigate to the news about the brand. You can go into the image search and videos, and that complex subsets of searches and all those data points, they don't exist in there. So they need to become more visual if they're going to get more clicks, I feel. And also Shopify, which I think you touched on, we're going to integrate in. They're going to have, you can buy directly from the LLM, so you don't have to go to the site. So my worry about that would be, one, it's nice to have the purchase, but if you're buying directly from the LLM and not going to the site, your average order value, I imagine, will be reduced, because to buy multiple items and fill your cart is something that we've always done on site. So it's really how you're trialing it. Would you want to bid and sell smaller products? So if you're a men's clothing retailer, maybe you go after socks and cravats when there's no sizing, or it could be gifting, and then you can start to get people, because once they've done the purchase, they've got you from the Klaviyo email side. So that could be something where you could test to get more people into the brand. If I was going to put together my summer wardrobe, would I be doing it straight from an LLM? Probably not.
Yeah, even if the LLM already got to know you, because I guess that's the other thing, is like, if you do start using it, you start buying lots of different clothes from there or products from there, then I guess it goes, well, actually, I know that you like a linen shirt, and this is the kind of thing, this is your size because I can see you buy it, and actually, there's a potential there that the brand, you could buy that information if you're a brand and put your products that were linen shirts, that were new products, in front of this person when they're going, I need my summer wardrobe, give me some recommendations.
There is that personalization, I guess, like you would have on Meta, where you can separate location, gender, age brackets, and so on and so forth. If LLMs, which is what they're trying to do, is ascertain more and more about your patterns of language. So I guess with that output being 1 in 1,000, the way I interact with ChatGPT is very, very different from somebody who's, in New York, who's in a different age bracket to me, and so on and so forth. So that personalization could be the winner.
Yeah. And Felix, sort of like, you sort of speak to clients every single day. You're looking at their strategy, how, they can develop and grow as a business, and it's challenging times for everybody. But I think it's, it's the kind of goal for every company. What are people feeling about LLMs? Are they excited about them? Are they cautious? Do they see it as, are they internally sort of starting to think this is going to be a big part of our future sort of business, or is it they're still kind of like waiting to see what happens?
I think across the industry, we're seeing a variety of different reactions, and particularly on the size of the player. Like I was saying, I think we work with a variety of brands. We're talking some multi-million-dollar brands, some early startups, and I think their approaches are differing greatly. I think what we're seeing is also an internal review on what we've done previously. But like you were saying, just to carry on the point with the value of the website and what role the website plays within the sales funnel, because as you said, I think that the power of a branded website is never going to be beatable. And obviously, like you said, the value of being able to add multiple items to the basket. But I think people are starting to see the increasing prevalence of LLMs within that search journey. And actually, it's changing the way in terms that people need to be writing content and presenting their brand as well. And it's not just about what you say anymore. It's actually about how clearly AI can extract the right information from your website. So structured, direct answers are seemingly more likely to be pulled into summaries. So whereas previously there was a lot of fluffy branded content online, people are becoming a lot more defined in the ways they're talking about products now, because that's the only way LLMs will get in there. An LLM isn't looking to read a lovely, softly worded bit of branded copy on a website. They need to see a functional bit of information that's going to provide an informative answer to a user. So I think content is shifting, and whether that's your own internal blog pieces, the wording on your website, the content needs to be machine readable, but then human useful, which I think is taking a lot of that soft brand elements out for people. So we're definitely seeing a big change there. In terms of the amount of effort clients are investing, I think some people are a little tentative because it's an ever-changing situation with AI and LLMs at the moment. Obviously, as Gareth was mentioning, we had ads rolling out in the US and then being rolled back in. And I think some of those very early adopters are going to get a healthy head start against their competitor set. And that early groundwork can set you in very good stead. One really interesting point that Gareth was talking about earlier was obviously the prevalence of Reddit and LLMs. And obviously, Reddit is almost like an uncontrollable beast in itself. It is a forum of people sharing opinions, which is almost the complete opposite to what you'd have with your own website, where you control the narrative. And finding that balance between presenting the right information about your brand on your owned media versus making sure the conversation and sentiment online is positive as well is going to be a really fine balance for people. But yeah, just to sum up, I think we're seeing a variety of approaches from clients. People are investing early. Some people are being a little bit cautious, but I think it's something that we're going to have to sort of take step by step as 2026 evolves.
Excellent. And obviously, this all kind of appeared a couple of years ago when ChatGPT launched from OpenAI, and that kind of just was an overnight sensation. Everybody got very excited. Then obviously Google sort of got to the party, and they'd been at the party before, but they weren't really doing it very public facing. They were using the AI mainly for their ads, but they sort of saw where ChatGPT had gone. Then obviously you got Claude, Grok. You've got all the different platforms. Do we think one's going to win? Or is it like Google has won in search? Or do we think that there's going to be multiple different ones that people use for different, different services or different kind of jobs?
I definitely think it's going to be more fragmented. I think they're going to coexist. I think what we've seen with Google, you get something like the helpful content update, or you get an algorithm change. We don't say, well, it's fine because we'll get traffic from Bing. Google just own that space. It's not a monopoly, but it has the lion's share of everybody's attention. And I think when we were speaking about LLMs, I actually think it's like the early days. So when I when I started doing this, we had Google, we had Yahoo, Orange had a search engine, Virgin had a search engine. This was before mobile. So we were tracking where we're ranking and where, and it was far more dispersed. And I think now, you would say, well, someone's always got to win, but obviously Nike and Adidas, they can exist. You know, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they coexist. And if we just look at social media, you know, I mean, if you're really into sport, Strava is a platform for social media. TikTok has moved into a space where Meta was previously. So I feel like, and it could be down to industry, it could be down to age. The people I know work in more kind of financial services and legal tend to use Claude a lot more. But that's a very small data set. That just is within my own circle. But I actually think they're going to coexist, which is great in one way because you've got many different options. You've got many different opportunities to win. But the other thing is you've also got an awful lot to track. So, and just as a flip side to that, I mentioned Google and Bing. Web grounding doesn't exclusively come from Google. It comes from Bing as well. So if ChatGPT is relying on Bing and you're not ranking in Bing for the information that needs to be fed for the LLMs, that's something that's starting to play in. So while we've got a client and they want to rank for, the material that they're using for their garments because it's quite unique, or the way they're handmade. So we would write content around that so users can find it. Might be small pockets of traffic, but the conversions are high and then people are more engaged. Now we're looking at actually getting that to rank so it can go into a non-human environment so the humans can find it. So it's being dispersed across more. So I actually think there'll be lots of opportunities because I don't think any of them are going away quickly.
No, further to Garrett's point, I think they are almost finding their own lanes individually, it seems like, and each platform and LLM almost seems to have its own particular niche or function that it's particularly good at. There will be some crossover, but I think they will settle and find their own gaps. And I think it is also important that we don't have a single entity controlling the LLM environment as well, because, you know, as big as Google is, it would be lovely if we had some a little bit shared voice in the industry as well. Obviously, we've seen what's happened to Google. They're a multi-billion-dollar business now, and their power stretches far and wide. And I think it's good to have healthy competition in the industry as well to keep that momentum up. Otherwise, if we find that we've got a single entity dominating, they almost might lose motivation to keep pushing the needle. So, healthy competition should be good, I think.
Excellent. And so if we look forward 18 months, my personal feeling is that, you'll have your Google marketing budget, you'll have your social media advertising budget, you'll have your TV budget, you'll have your above the line budget, but then you'll also have your SEO budget, but you also have your LLMs ads budget. That's where I'm thinking it's going to go. I don't know if you guys agree or if you think that's not realistic and it's all going to be more natural than sort of.
Well, no, we're already seeing clients ring fencing budgets for 2026 and beyond, in anticipation of the arrival of ads in whatever shape that takes. And I know that obviously we mentioned there have been some rollbacks, but as Gareth mentioned, it's integral that these platforms get some sort of revenue stream coming in because they are big, expensive beasts to run and they have to monetize it beyond just the regular subscription model. So there will be ads in some shape or form. So, we've got several clients who have already ring-fenced a reasonable budget to make sure that they can make that first splash when it comes out, because I think we are going to see a bit of a rush to the start line when it comes out, and there will be some heavy competition.
Yeah, I definitely think in the short term, the monitoring of what's happening is integral because there will be action points. There will be things right now I do know what to do, and there's things that we need more data on, and of course there's a pocket of things that none of us know because we don't know where they're heading. So we need to be tracking as much as we possibly can to see sentiment, citation, prompts, fan out queries, and then we can say, now we've got a pattern. And ironically, we can actually use AI to monitor those patterns as well. So if you feed data and you can say, can you see where the spikes are? I definitely think the platforms that would be more successful are the ones that are doing the best generative side. So if you're going to ChatGPT, Perplexity for information, or if you're also going there to organize your 20-day trip to Thailand or whatever to do your itinerary. The ones that do that the best will be used because it's habitual, but I also think we'll see far more disparity. I mean, with this Google search and their revenue, it does happen, but not many people bid on questions, the Q&A side, which is where we're getting the AI overview. So Google's been very user intuitive as they are to say this is the useful side of things. But if you're looking for certain products or services, the traditional 10 blue links and the ads are often there as they always have been. And people like that. It's quite difficult to break some people's habits. So I think we're going to see everything grow, but I don't think the LLMs will be taken away from Google. But that's one definite one to keep an eye on.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Felix. Thank you very much, Gareth. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you very much.